broadcast on the fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. PST. Sean will take you through the astral byways and highways and bring you back home ready for the next show. Here's your host, Sean Bond.
Hello?
Okay, try that.
Okay, cool. Awesome. What did you get?
Not very much of that at all, so start again.
Okay. Okay, with weekly. Been going on many different adventures around our state that we've been getting in missions from the planet. We've been tapping into more of the oracle of the self and even branching out into other sensory aspects of oracles, such as the birds with the message of the geese right now at like 10 p.m. at night. They bring an interesting amount of wisdom in collective libraries of song lines of over 400 plus lineages of geeses that can be connected to in a filtering audio managing process by source with great knowledge and awareness of what they've experienced in the migrations of their kind and traveling across the land and all they've seen and from many different perspectives, more than just their sight, based on all their energetic bodies and what they've been doing in interaction with the above and below and surface and in other layers of their existence. So bird oracleship in bird whispering, where you work with the ancestors of the land through that line of lineages or others as a communication system and awareness, omens, alerts, warnings, bring something to your attention. There's many different things they speak, including bringing of more collectives, some being wanting to talk to you, that's knowing the technology of the influence of the birds and getting them to do something out of the range of their normal habit patterns, maybe even flying right over you or next to you, coming next to you, or pecking at your window, or many other ways, even flying into your house. And you can tune into the various messages that those bring and a greater working relationship and awareness with the birds. It's quite simple to gain the relationship. After a while, you have to bring them abundance and attract them more to the land. You can create offerings of birdseed and bring that into a sacred place where you store the seed, and then it's healing and getting more energetic because it might still hold life depending on the seed and the manufacturer and what if anything has been done with it, whatever. And even if you can share the seed with your bed, that's a new form of alchemy. Besides growing the seeds, they go to nourishing the lineages of bird that allow them and to dream with you and you to dream with them. It's 10:10 now. The birds of many different species will start coming to your land, anchoring in and interacting with sacred places that you've set up or wherever you distribute the seed, as they will do commerce with the elementals and ancestors of your land that you worked in your prayer grounds or your sacred space or whatever you created, and then bringing their, especially if you time it with like spring and stuff, to see it as a great place to start roosting. So they add their songs, their resonance, their libraries, their energy enhancement to life, cause sound healing is a big thing, with the land and the seas, like with whales and stuff. So there's some multidimensional beings, deities and, nature spirits, wind spirits, all different kinds, shapeshifters that will, inner earth groups, a lot of that will, know some, majority-wise, a lot of psionic interaction with, different bird lineages, especially if they have, like, bird DNA or something. A lot of this human species has a lot of DNA, including bird DNA. So, of different types. Not saying you have everything and not saying everyone has it, but, a fair amount of people I've read have it, certain types, and some have really rare types, which is impressive and has a lot of abilities, and like even sometimes shape-shifting forms waiting for them to have the man's place to be able to unlock that ability, as well as have like a lineage introduction to them in whatever way birds will do that, or like some like shape-shifting being or augmentation introduction or whatever evolution belief system into genetic introduction you're reading for a person. So listening to the messages of the land as they come to you as you sit in nature can be very opening to a greater experience, unlocking each aspect. Sometimes they will send you missions, trade. Sometimes they'll want to trade with you, these beings, or have a proposition for, you're in an advantageous place to do this, and you got this skill set. I'll trade you for that. Is that you, Jaypee?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's good. Have you ever worked with the birds, Jaypee?
Can't speak.
Okay. Yeah. What is your experience with the birds, Ryne? And I don't know if there's a way to do the chat questions. We can also take questions.
I feel like they're some sort of messengers in my life. Always reminding me to be aware. And I'll see I love birds. I actually have a sort of vision when I see birds, like the ones that just spread their wings and glide around kind of in circles, and you'll see those big areas where there's just a bunch of them doing that, just with their arms spread or their wings spread. I'll see like something around them. I'll see them drop orbs, little kind of transparent orbs.
Yeah, please talk about that.
And
not everyone sees that.
Yeah, and it feels like they're dropping some sort of. I take it as a gift, like they're dropping gifts or something like that, or it seems to be some sort of presents, like gifts. And I'll see a black circle around them, but it's very light shaded and like opaque or very subtle. There's a black circle around them. And I feel like that brought me to think about how the Native Americans and the shamans and different people of the tribe would work with the birds as far as looking through their eyes, like sending those hawks or those scout birds, and then they would tune into what the bird sees. I had a feeling that circle around it was a way to tap into doing that. And I have experienced different things. I mean, when I played with that imagining and visualization, I saw different things, but there's always the parasympathetic or the programs that'll come up and they'll say, you're just imagining it and whatever. But I felt like I could see like a bird's eye view when I would try to tune into it.
Yeah, that reminds me of an experience I had recently, and I've had like skipping back a few times in different perspectives while going into meditative state and trance, and like a place where my third eye was more open and unblocked to the shadow aspects for those moments of time, where I could see a connection my higher self had been connecting with versions of myself that existed in different bird forms through the tree of my spirit that were greater potential for doing commerce with than any other bird because of the growth involved, we're being the same, pretty much the same being, a greater amount of trust, mystery school, spiritual contracts, the way I did it in gentleness, where I would go into the perception of the eyes and even expand into the light bodies surrounding spiritual entourage of experiencing it vicariously in second, third, fourth, all that person perspective around, and even traveling around and seeing it backward and forwards, and flying as it, and sometimes dreaming as a bird, and being able to control myself in that aspect. And shape-shifting into a bird is if you can get that in dream, you're like close in stepping motions towards, if you can do that consciously, you got some of the pieces of pie to learning shape-shifting. There's like a whole bringing the dream into the direct manifest now kind of direction with that. So, like Game of Thrones warg stuff, where you're able to perceive through the eyes of a being and then gain commerce with the lineage as trust enhances with the different individuals, and you're branching out in a greater ability to perceive and influence different bird lineages through their eyes in a commerce, exchange, interaction, something where you may be a foundational aspect to that lineage's creation, depending on who you are and what you're doing in multidimensional chess moves, and have greater ability to influence in not a negative way that's in union communion. There are course beings that do influence in a negative way, which I don't advocate, but because it will karmically backhand you quite a bit later. But if you do it, you can do like a commerce with the being where it agrees to the terms of the influence, and then it gains a whole bunch out of it. And especially if you don't put the being in harm's way, they can give messages, like you can contact the closest bird in the area of a specific being on the surface or inner earth or whatever. Same thing with other animal types, this whole dynamic, to where they'll be urged to go in a particular direction by their higher self, and the different beings that are involved in the motor functioning, depending on the sovereignty of the being, etc., of where they are most influenced to go at any given time, and it's high reaction to those, maybe you call it I am presence commands, or influence, depending on if you're that being. So, yeah, and then deliver a message that gets the attention, like you're physically getting in the face of the being where they're perceiving it, and like then wondering why this is happening, especially if it's a rare animal that doesn't usually come into their bubble of reality often. They'll question it more. But even if they're like asleep, which beings will often influence animals to do that, to bring them to some type of timeline change, depending on a greater predictive model of what the outcome of that is, and if the chess moves are in place to either set up for awakening or bring them into is necessary, and like looking for answers and a connection to that spirit or the animal lineage, or feeling a deeper connection in heart space, in spiritual entourage, in a lineage. Like, you get the light codes of that being, there's medicine that's transferred, there's all this knowledge and awareness. And then that also goes into working with guides, which I'd love to also talk about too. And animal spirits, familiars, symbiotic, all the different symbiotic versions of ourselves, and positive, audited for with your rules, relationships with beings we can surround ourselves in the seen and sometimes the unseen, like soul family, and a physical anchor for that awareness. Because like, if you have a pet, that not the main spirit of that will probably be very close to you, or a member of the family, or have a synchronistic reason for coming to you. But the main spirit of that pet will not be the only one going through the viewing experience of the body of the pet. It might anchor in the awareness of hundreds or whatever number of guides, animal spirits, familiars that have attached to you but aren't able to like come to the form easily and readily. So we'll operate vicariously through a being that you already have like love connection to, heart connection to. So that will amplify and be a gateway to healing them and working with them more, and expressing greater health, awareness, capability, upgrades, spiritual, physical, longevity for that animal that you're forming a relationship with. And it can be expanded upon greatly, in particular in the shamanism of that animal species that has found itself in your life. So I love animals. What about you, Ron?
Yeah, that's interesting. Other ways to see animals that you're talking about. A really beneficial way of viewing. And I know you share really multi-dimensional things with three-dimensional language, you know. Like, would you have are animals, what is the definition of like what an animal is? Or what are the animals? What are the birds? What are the different beings, like the, toads, all of these symbolic representations, all these animals that we get draw these conclusions and get these gifts from? Are they pretty much to be seen just like us, as beings just like us, or are they on a different road than us? What would be the animals part of our experience? Like, what do they play? Or is it too big to sum up in like a sentence or a few sentences?
It is very broad, but like as free will, I can answer that in many different ways that fluently come to me. Kind of nature has a fractal link to divinity within itself, in that free will and the consciousness, the growth, the adding to, the increasing pressurization and accumulation of the density of consciousness in each processor that is capable of more and more as it goes through its experience and passes down the technology. This is an interesting aspect of evolution and how we pass down genetic codes. It doesn't always mean if you're a genius, you're going to have genius kids, but it's much more likely there are upgrades and programs and switches that you can create in the organic process of evolution that can quicken the free will and understanding of the technology of the DNA to where it grows infinitely fast or at any pace you desire. Same thing with the animals. there have been super intelligent beings that incarnate into these animal vessels, technology vehicles that allow for a very multicultural experience in all the different avenues of life lessons that can be learned through the cycles of their existence, life and death, breeding, loving, or whatever love expression, because they come in all shapes and sizes. Some not as love as we see it too, but having some aspect or access to the energy. And especially when a being of some type of animal form grows in an evolutionary process with love technology or some type of energy that's been introduced to them at any point in time, especially with greater awareness, that evolutionary process can be amplified in a non-forced way where it would grow to the understanding of that elemental consciousness. Let's just say love. What would happen if you gave a tarantula or a scorpion love? So they're predators and they have a instinct, which is a passed down awareness, reactions, muscle memory, all these things that make it so that it makes it easier for them to survive. And if they don't have to survive and they can go into thriving, they are given other options than just fight or flight, with the adrenal response, an activated adrenal response with love in getting their fill and nourishment and be able to expand. What would happen if you try to connect your heart technology to one of those animals like a crocodile? There are people that have taken in wounded crocodiles. You can look this up on YouTube. That were like, there's one that was shot with a bullet and he took it in and nursed it back to health. It will not bite him no matter what, and he dances with it in the water. But, and that one poorly died, of course, because of the bullet wound after, but the capability of even reaching past the reptilian mind and getting to the heart, love, and amplifying its connection so that it can express itself in a new way in a species that doesn't readily do it. If that can happen, and if that could be passed down the lineage, there's so many things that can happen with this reality. So many relationships that can form with us in union, communion with those teacher spirits that teach us so much by just observing them. How many times do you go and observe as a kid ants in an anthill in a either positive, negative way, whatever, or birds in the tree, or the different bushes of bees and insects, fishing. There's all like I'll go to the aquarium and get awed and start to get a feeling inside you that's different than your normal day. In that harmonic orchestra of energy that's coming into the infinite processor of your heart, there are strands of technology of light and memory that are transferred from the emanation of these animals for you to unpack and get better at unpacking in your awareness and knowingness so that you can remember yourself if you've experienced a life as this animal, or even have it simultaneously existing, as many do, and connect with those beings, gain their wisdom, gain their experience, gain an understanding of what they'd learn in their life cycle, so you have direct access to all the many lessons that you've learned in the past, and you start naming to see and claim what is accessible to you. Because oftentimes when we ask, what do you want to go into? We freeze up and we're like, well, there's so many things. What would you like to? And the fire brings much wisdom to us in this process of grounding the audience and helping through the elements of fire kingdoms of life and consciousness that we rarely interact with, but is open to us at any moment that we choose to accept the mantle, place, and role of that awareness, experience, and what we bring back and forth between our experience with the fire, or the water, with the wind, or the various beings that manifest to us in our understanding, our eyesight, our hearing, and every other sense that's capable to us as we're growing through our evolutionary process, becoming aware of what exists and what is real and what is true. As we find out everyone has a different truth and are coming together to take care of our shadow and bring forth the greatest emanation of light and truth that this world can possibly imagine, and bring forth that light, what holds in that light, what consciousness can be brought forth into the future generations, what can be manifest in technology, in spiritual or physical, in vibrancy, in courageous action, in changing this world, in changing the weather to bring forth awareness, in healing the land, in sparking the activation inside yourself so you may grow and know and be one again, healing the various aspects of ourselves and shards and parts and pieces, the wounds, the runes, the speech we have brought into existence, the speech that has brought us into existence, the choices, the actions, the timelines, the disentanglement of the negative construct of this reality that wishes to limit us and create our path forward instead of us creating our path forward. And understanding the greater aspect of disconnection from the fraud reality, the illusion, the Maya, the attachments, and the greater understanding of releasal and disentanglement of attachment in all the different ways that it's abusing us, so that we may shape our destiny forward and grow and be able to react to anything that tries to re-entangle with us again, because they often will. And in greater awareness, we thrive and strive to have the greatest life, this life. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. I was just saying, when you were speaking of Maya, saying let go of it, it's like being able to let go of that as a tool and a teacher spirit that was the teacher at its time, but you are not defined by a program. You're not defined by any predictions based in anything that's not source based. And in all the answers layered that you gave just now, it's like a whole train of like that just hit, and literally a train went by at the same time. And but I was just seeing connections of the law of one, and how you mentioned that we're all experiencing aspects of ourselves. In general, that's the law of one. All is one. If one is harmed, all is harmed. If one is loved, all is loved. We're dealing with our experience of things, as well as the things we experience. There's one source, and then there's the experience of the sources. And it seems like those animal spirits that come are just beings. The best way to take them and take their being in front of you and in your vision and in your life, a bird flying over, should be taken as a exchange of the highest technology in the universe, which you're standing in, and that's the DNA, as well as light DNA, and all this light exchanging so that this one light source can deroot all the weeds that no longer are serving us, those programs that we don't need to still be running, that are purely running because of a soulless system began it, and it was empowered by our souls through unawareness and tacit consent. So this experience here, this is the exchange of light, the great exchange of light that we're gifted with this presence. It's just the gift of being here. It's actually amazing to be feeling this fire and seeing how much it interacted with whatever was being exchanged with the words, as Sean was saying, and how everyone here within this 1 degree of separation, meaning anyone listening to the show or in this moment, their fire is added to this fire. Just like all moments are added within the ever-present moment. And it just feels really empowering to actually pick up that mantle, pick up the walking stick, the talking stick, pick up what you need when you need it, and then be able to place it down for whatever peace, whatever manifests peace the most in the moment. Because we're all at this point, and it's very monumentous, this moment right now. And it's all about forgiving. And if you have something you're holding against yourself, or whatever you believe that tells you should hold something, hold you back in some sort of limit, I offer that to the fire now. And I actively ask you if you would like to offer that and let go of what you no longer need to hold. Because this now moment can be sacred with your active application of it. With you going into ceremony, that's choosing to make a moment sacred. That's how you cut through the layers and get right to that source that we all are, that one. And then that's where you can exchange the most and tell yourself how you're going to exchange in the future with your rules, orders, procedures. Just amazing. And I'm honored to be here and now with you.
Same with you. Do you feel it? Do you feel the fire inside you? If you don't feel it, you can at any moment. It is your choice. You have that fire to spark inside you. You have the internal flint and steel. You have waiting to be lit if it isn't already. If it's not a little lit candle or a match or a raging fire inside you, you can make it bigger, grow, to expand in light, in your vision, in cultivation of bliss, in attraction of charge, in the understanding of what it takes to maintain that fire day by day, day and night, as we often fall asleep and will find our fire smoldering or waiting for us to greater activate it for the day ahead. You can bring into this fire an understanding that within it holds the light that is one of the oldest substances of fractality, of awareness, of spectrum, of makeup of reality that creates and expands and changes into other forms of all that it is. And we have that light within us. We can make it grow. We can give it the nourishment, the wood, what it needs in energy to maintain itself going. Sometimes it needs a spark from an actual fire. Sometimes you need a big fire, especially when dealing with darkness. Clear out the darkness.
And all it does take is this spark is a good thing to remember too. Sometimes it seems overwhelming to think about even changing your life, changing the things you don't want. But remembering the power of that, even if your fire is dwindled and gone through so much horrid weather over the time, hard times, and you just barely have a ember, you just remember that spark. One spark could burn down a whole house. I mean, one spark, if it's nurtured by the dead leaves around or has things around to burn and the space for it, it can grow to the biggest fires. And just the one spark. And that explains how the spark of the infinite, just that small spark, came into you or your mother's womb, came into your fetus, and then you began growing this experience from the spark of the infinite. And you're still the spark of the infinite who has grown, and it's the accumulation of all of those moments of the life that you've had and ever will be, you can access now because you tune into that one source, overlay, every way of all. And the one spark, it's your fire you have through your whole life. And you don't worship others' fires, but you burn with them, and you're all in your ceremonies. Sometimes we do look at other people's fires because they're fucking amazing. And sometimes, but we can sometimes take from it, take the feeling and energy from it, but we got to take it to our own fire because that's what we're holding the whole time.
Well said. At any moment, we can choose the understanding that the reality is constantly wanting to re-entangle with us the negative system to get us fractured from the rest of the consciousness, to get us separate, to be in the perspective of only seeing. When we know there is a oneness and a feeling and sensation that we've experienced, most, and some not at all, and sometimes they've forgotten, because the connection to the system of domination control wants us to forget everything that can empower us in the moment going forward, further to creating a greater and greater momentum of moments. Create with your ability to change you and the locomotive of everyone you connect to. Fire shares that connection with us. It holds something deep inside of itself that we know is familiar. We know we have something similar to, but we can't give it vocabulary easily. We know that fire is our friend. We know some of the world has projections of fear of fire and its destructionary forces, but we understand as we grow the necessariness of fire and what this world would be like without it. Many of life would not exist without fire. Its ability to expand heat and light and there are fires more than just in the expression of what we see in heat and expression. Besides our internal plasmas and heat and light, there are fires in other spectrums of dimension and density that we can also form relationships forwards and backward in time and reconnect, work on the shadow self of interaction so that we can grow with those fires of community and consciousness. So they can enhance, strengthen our life going forward and give us the fire and action that we need to create in this world to manifest the sun of ourself.
The soul. In Spanish. It's the soul.
Exactly.
I was in tears just speaking earlier, and I was just thinking of how I know the system has those entanglement traps of come entangle here, it's so great, blah blah blah, come entangle with this system of domination and control again, we miss you, remember how it was. And then there's also the reality that's not against you, like your universe. Exactly. It's also giving you these things, and you can't deny that experience because of other experiences. Sometimes the most heartfelt feelings you'll have and the biggest healings are whenever you go through the most, and then you're just at your last end, or you feel no one's there, and then at that time, someone just gives you a heartfelt, heart-to-heart hug, and just hold you as just holding space of that connection of, yeah, we're all source, it's okay. And just because you went through all that healing can be given to yourself and offered and received now. And it feels so good to shed off all that bullshit that you had to go through, which you don't have to go through anymore. Because remedy and resolve is the reason you're here. So, fire agrees. It's in sparks flying throughout the sky.
Pretty high.
And it's reminding us of the stars when we followed it up. Of them just being there, remaining.
Being stars in bodies. Some of us will find ourselves connecting to stars in this universe and other universes of our existence. in whatever form higher self or higher dimensional existence exists in that collective that we can connect to. We can connect to it through the fire if we want, and then bring it into the fire of ourselves as we cultivate it within ourselves, and it creates that healing. It purifies the darkness that we strive to light against, to build up the strength that's necessary for the gifts that are coming to you in the future. The strength that your reality, your higher self, your entourage, your guides, your source, your everything is gearing up and knowing that you are wanting to accept and what is taken. It will push you to the limit. Do not let it knock you down. Keep going forward. Find that strength within. Find that fire. Ignite it. Greater awareness will come to you. Greater strength. Greater happiness. Healing. So many things can be brought into with the fire. It has so much programming capacity and potential. It's amazing. And as you emanate that back to yourself in the form of heat and light, as you give it the ability to create within what you've given it, it will reward you back for giving it what it needs to be with you this life. Especially when you choose to be one with the universe and one with Source and the fire of the universe, your fire of creation, so that you can create at a greater level than now for what? The collectives of unity in life, in consciousness, in growth, in natural evolution hold for the future, and what their awareness is of what that takes. And what they transfer to you every day that tests you, that teaches you that everything is a teacher, and is waiting for you to unpack the greater layers of every aspect of the reality and what it brings to you in the now, and what you can build upon it to make your reality better, to create things people haven't seen in millennia, in older, destroyed civilizations, or the ones of stars far away, or the minds and the dreams of every individual on the planet, waiting for the strength of the individuals in the now to help them manifest it here in this graduation for greater interaction with the multiverse as a whole, as a species that holds the library and strength of all the species, or most of the species, or whatever amount of species you have in your DNA, coming before, and even in your light body, and expanding upon what you've been given. Some may say we're given the cards we're dealt, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. I say, sometimes you can change the hands you've dealt, but it takes effort. It takes strength. It takes you to realize what the cards that have been thrown to you, there is no bad cards. If you can use the teacher of what is given to you in the now to make something, heal something, to work with something, to direct your focus in a different direction. If you lost your legs, it gives you a greater time to focus on something else that may change the world. If you've got a sickness, that sickness will challenge you to become a healer that is healed within them in that strength, so they can bring that healing to the world that seeks to heal things that it's not able to heal daily. So many people fade out of existence from not being able to muster the strength, not know how, not have the choices, the interactions coming to them, and sometimes choosing to ignore it based on what has been the commonality of ignoring that subject over and over and over again through the family, the friends, the surroundings, or whatever is influencing us negatively, to put down that awareness from greater growth.
Yeah, put down that awareness. Put down that awareness. You've had it all day. You just got home from work. Put down that awareness. Grab the remote control. Put down the awareness. Go. Don't worry about eating. Just go to this fast food. Put down the awareness. It's just like the message given.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, you're back.
The gremlins. Okay. So I also would love to, like, somehow schedule in the future a dragon episode with, you, Jaypee, and that would be a wonderful thing to bring to people, if that's okay with you. And we can talk about so many things. Where were we before the call went out?
Put down the awareness.
Oh, yeah. It tries to bring us into a state where we're constantly processing information from the day that may or may not serve us, but will most likely put us into some type of cyclical form of distraction to break any predictive model of you doing something unpredictable in the moment to make your stronger, greater version of yourself more aware, more activated, more inspirational, more ready to change. The narrative is controlling the change and influencing what is the change makers and how they change the subject and the story and what we're passed down, what we see, what comes to us through our daily life. So most people surf the internet or surf the daily waters of energy. So disentangling process. I've been finding greater layers to the awareness of attachments and things that came up to me before when sages and gurus and all kinds of mystics and people, wise people would say, detach from the world, detach, go into the self, get rid of limitation, transcend it. There's all kinds of different things, to this perspective and what it means. Only when it fully got into my comprehension based on the list of things that are really advantageous to do coming to me from source through my mystery school connection to the light of source that I have in my body that I cultivate and grow so that I may work with source at a greater ability this lifetime. So apparently to them it's really advantageous to disconnect from the world. It allows them greater reach into the existence to help you. Things are constantly trying to attach us in unawareness. Not entirely the things or people's faults. Most of the people have no idea in the varying degrees of attachment they have. Sometimes there will be whole systems made to a certain attachment that really draws somebody in and gets them to agree with it there with enjoyment. That doesn't mean we should surrender fully these things that bring us joy to ourselves, but we have to learn at a greater length of the level of disentanglement that is needed daily so that we can train ourselves to be able to instantly disentangle from something that aggressively tries to co-create our reality without our permission, through, like, as an example, there are beings in the system of domination control that like to haunt objects or people, and that can change the whole bubble of reality and what happens, how a person acts around them, their consciousness, their sovereignty, beings influencing or monitoring them, all this kind of stuff. So imagine like whole companies of producing things that come to our reality. Some beings are like holding territory over all these toys from China or this country, and that influences how our youth grows up in their obsessions, their drives, what they are seek to bring into their reality as we grow and shaped into the person we are today. The movies, the shows we watch, all these things are targeting. Does that mean we should stop using them? No. But we have to still learn the disentangle process. Does that mean put it down entirely? No. Energetically, you can be doing a disentangling process for something you know you have to entangle with, like work or people or your family or all this stuff that comes into our reality whether we want it to or not. And so we must use it as a teacher in what the choices are ahead for the best possible decision that we're making in the now, as everyone seeks to do that, and we try not to judge. We're on Instagram, on Facebook, and all this stuff. Come visit us, see videos, and yeah. You want sessions? Hit us up.